My name is Noah Williams. I'm only 8 years old, and most of the time, I just want to talk about planes. I want to be a pilot so I can fly higher than the birds and see how the world looks when it's all small and quiet. But 5 days ago, I went higher than any airplane could ever go. My mom told me that if I saw the truth, I have to tell it, even if I'm just a kid. I'm still a little shaky, but I'm not scared anymore. I met him. I met Jesus. And he showed me why the world feels so loud right now and what is happening with Donald Trump and the year we are living in. I'm not trying to scare you. I just want you to stay awake. Please subscribe and listen because what I saw really matters. It was a Tuesday. The mist at the state park was cold and the waterfall looked like giant white curtains. I remember the sound most of all. It was a roar that felt like it was shaking my bones. I wanted to see the edge, to see where the water decides to jump and turn into foam. I remember my boots slipping on a wet rock. It happened so fast. 1 second, I was looking at the rainbow in the mist, and the next, the world flipped upside down. I didn't even have time to scream. The water was so heavy, like a big cold hand pushing me down into the dark. I tried to find the air, but the bubbles were spinning me around like a washing machine. I felt the rocks hitting me, but then the pain just stopped. I just said, "Jesus, help me." And then the cold went away. I wasn't in the water anymore. It was strange because I felt like I was standing on nothing, but I was perfectly safe. I looked down and saw the rescue men in their bright orange vests. They were pulling my body out of the swirling pool at the bottom of the falls. I looked down at myself and thought, I look like I'm sleeping. I could see my mom on the shore. She was screaming, but I couldn't hear the sound of her voice, only the rhythm of her heart. It sounded like a drum that was breaking. I wanted to tell her I was okay, but then a light started to grow behind me. This light wasn't like the sun or a lamp. It was like a hug that fills up your whole soul. It was warm, like sitting by a fireplace on a snowy night, but it also felt like it was made of every kind word anyone had ever said to me. When I turned around, he was there. He didn't look like the pictures in the books at Sunday school. He looked realer than the ground. His skin looked like it had light behind it, and his eyes were like looking into a million miles of blue sky. There was so much love in his face that I forgot all about the waterfall and the rescue men. I felt so happy I wanted to cry, but you don't cry sad tears there. I just ran to him, and I reached out my hand. He took it, and his hand felt solid and warm. I asked him, "Are you the king?" He laughed, and it sounded like wind chimes in a summer breeze. He said, "I am your friend, Noah, and you are right where you need to be for a little while." We started to walk, but we weren't walking on grass or pavement. We were walking on what looked like a sea of glass that had colors moving inside it like oil on water. Every step I took made a sound like a piano note. Jesus held my hand, and suddenly the glass beneath us became clear, like a giant window. We weren't at the waterfall anymore. We were standing above the whole country of America. From up there, it didn't look like a map with lines. It looked like a giant living thing that was breathing. But the breathing was shallow and fast, like it was scared. I saw thousands of lights, but I also saw a lot of shadows. The shadows looked like thick gray smoke that was crawling over the cities and the houses. I asked Jesus, "Is the world on fire?" He knelt down next to me, so we were eye to eye. He pointed down at the smoke. "That isn't fire, Noah. That is the noise of people who have forgotten how to listen. It is the weight of hearts that have grown heavy with the need to be right." Then he showed me something I will never forget. He waved his hand, and the year 2026 appeared in the air like it was written in stars. Underneath the numbers, I saw a giant golden sieve, like the kind my grandma uses to sift flour when she makes cakes. The sieve was shaking over the whole nation. I saw people falling through the holes and others staying on top. Jesus said, "This is the year of the sifting." Think of how a farmer shakes the wheat to find the grain. The world is being shaken right now so that the truth can finally fall through the noise. As the sieve shook, I saw a man standing right in the middle of the biggest storm. I recognized him from the TV. It was Donald Trump. He was standing on a platform, and there was a giant wind swirling around him. The wind was made of people's voices. On one side, people were cheering so loud it sounded like thunder. On the other side, people were shouting with faces that were twisted and red with anger. It looked like a giant hurricane, and he was the center of it. I asked Jesus, why is everyone so mad at him? And why do the other people cheer so much? Jesus looked at the storm, and his face was very serious but very kind. He didn't look at the man the way people do on the news. He looked at him with a sort of quiet sadness and a big hope at the same time. He said, "Noah, this man is not the end of the story. He is the wind that moves the grain. He is a mirror that I have placed in front of the nation. When people look at him, they don't see him as he truly is. They see what is hiding inside their own hearts. Those who hate him are seeing their own capacity for anger. Those who worship him are often seeing their own desire for power. The man is a tool for the sifting." I watched as the wind around Mr. Trump got faster and faster. I saw that it wasn't just about him being president or a leader. It was like he was a magnet that was pulling all the hidden things out of people. I saw families sitting at dinner tables where no one was talking because they were so divided over his name. I saw friends who had known each other for years turning their backs because of a vote. Jesus showed me that the politics and the shouting are just ways to see what is actually inside of us. He told me, in 2026, the sifting will get much faster. It will feel like the country is being pulled apart by two giant hands, but it is actually being emptied of the things that don't matter. I am letting the shaking happen so that people realize they cannot find peace in a person or a throne. They can only find it in the truth. We moved closer to the man in the storm. I could see Mr. Trump's face clearly. He looked tired. He was holding a small candle, and he was trying to keep it lit while the wind blew from every direction. Sometimes he would shield the flame and it would grow bright, but other times he would start shouting back at the wind and the flame would almost go out. Jesus said, "He is wrestling to hear the whisper in the middle of the roar." Many people pray for him to win or lose, but very few pray for him to hear the whisper. In 2026, the hearts of the leaders will be weighed just like the hearts of the children. I saw the hearts of people across America while this was happening. They were flickering like little light bulbs that were about to burn out. Jesus told me, "The division you see isn't to break the world, but to show where the cracks are. You cannot fix a house if you don't know where the walls are broken, Noah." He showed me a vision of a giant scale like the ones in old movies. On one side of the scale were all the speeches, the gold, the buildings, and the rallies. On the other side was a single drop of kindness from a person who didn't want any credit. The side with the drop of kindness was much heavier. It pulled the scale all the way down. Jesus smiled when I saw that. "The world thinks the big things are what change history," he said. "But the sifting is designed to show that only the small, pure things survive the fire." I saw the months of 2026 stretching out like a long road. The road was bumpy and there were parts where the bridge looked like it was falling down. I saw people standing on the edge of the road, pointing fingers and screaming at each other about who was responsible for the holes in the ground. But then I saw a few people who weren't pointing fingers. They were down on their knees, filling the holes with stones and helping others across. Their bodies were glowing with a soft light. "Who are they?" I asked. "Those are the ones who understand the sifting," Jesus replied. They know that while the storm of politics blows, the real work is the person standing right in front of them. 2026 is the year where I am asking my people to stop looking at the screens and start looking at the souls. The light around us started to pulse like a heartbeat. I could feel the heartbeat in the soles of my feet. It was the most peaceful feeling in the world, even though what he was showing me was a little bit scary. I realized that as long as I was holding his hand, the shaking didn't matter. I felt like I was in the cockpit of a plane, and even though there was turbulence, the pilot knew exactly where we were going. The sea of glass under my feet began to ripple like a pond when you throw a pebble into it. Jesus didn't let go of my hand. He looked out over the horizon of America and waved his arm again. Suddenly, I saw millions of tiny glowing boxes everywhere. They were in people's pockets, on their tables, and hanging on their walls. I realized they were phones and televisions. But from up here, they didn't look like tools. They looked like little machines that were breathing out a thick purple fog. The fog was sticky. It would wrap around people's heads and cover their eyes so they couldn't see the person standing right next to them. I saw a daddy sitting on a couch with his daughter, but they both had the purple fog around their faces because they were looking at their screens. The fog was full of words like liar, enemy, and hate. Jesus looked at this and his eyes got very dark with a deep kind of sadness. "Do you see the fog, Noah?" he asked. I told him it looked like the smog over the city back home. He nodded. "This is the noise of the world. In 2026, the noise will become so loud that people will feel like they are drowning in it. They think they are getting the truth from these boxes, but they are only getting more fog. The sifting is happening here too. I am looking for the ones who are brave enough to turn off the noise and look for me in the quiet." As he spoke, I saw a woman in a small house. She was crying because she was so worried about the news. She was watching a man talk about Donald Trump and how the world was going to end. She looked terrified. But then she reached out and pushed a button and the screen went black. She took a deep breath and started to pray. The moment she did, the purple fog around her head just snapped and disappeared. A beam of golden light came down from where we were standing and touched her. Jesus smiled, and it was like the sun coming out after a storm. "She chose the quiet," he whispered. "In 2026, the people who choose the quiet will be the only ones who can see the path ahead. Everyone else will be running in circles in the fog." Then the scene shifted. We were flying again, higher and faster. I felt like I was in the cockpit of a fighter jet. Below us, I saw the great cities of America. They looked like they were made of light, but some of the light was turning gray. I saw giant buildings where leaders were meeting. I saw the man again, Mr. Trump, and he was in a very large room with lots of flags. People were standing in lines to talk to him. Some were whispering in his ear, trying to get him to do things for them. I saw that some of these people had hearts that looked like cold stones. They didn't care about the people. They only cared about being powerful. Jesus pointed to the stones in their chests. The sifting is not just for the people in the streets, Noah. It is for the ones in the high places. I am shaking the foundations of the seats of power. In 2026, many things that were hidden behind closed doors will be pulled into the light. People will see that many of their leaders are not building a kingdom for the good of all, but a kingdom for themselves. The shaking will be so hard that the stones will crack. I saw a vision of a giant gavel hitting a table, and the sound was so loud it felt like it shook the whole world. When the gavel hit, I saw walls falling down, not real walls made of bricks, but walls made of secrets. I saw names being written in the sky, names of people who thought they were safe in the dark. Jesus said, "Nothing stays hidden in the year of the sifting. I am bringing everything to the surface so the people can see what they have been trusting." I asked Jesus, "Is Mr. Trump one of the ones with a stone heart?" Jesus didn't answer right away. He looked down at the man with a look that was full of a very deep mystery. "His heart is a battlefield, Noah, just like the country he wants to lead. There's gold there, but there's also a lot of sand and pride. The sifting is happening inside of him more than anyone else. He is being tested to see if he will be a servant or a king. The world wants a king, but I am looking for a servant. 2026 will be the year where he has to decide which one he wants to be. If he chooses the gold, he will be a blessing. If he chooses the pride, he will be a lesson." Then he showed me a vision of the American flag, but it was torn in half. One half was being held by people who were screaming for justice, and the other half was being held by people screaming for freedom. But neither side was looking at the flag. They were just trying to pull it away from the other side. They were using the flag like a rope in a game of tug of war. "They are tearing the thing they say they love," I said. It made me feel sick in my tummy. Jesus nodded. "They love their ideas more than they love their brothers. This is the great division of 2026. People will find reasons to hate each other over every little thing. They will divide over their leaders, their medicine, their money, and their words. But look closer, Noah." He zoomed in like a camera lens. I saw a man in a red hat and a woman in a blue shirt. They were neighbors. They were standing in their driveways and they were shouting at each other. They were so mad they were shaking. But then I saw a small dog run out into the street and it got hit by a car. Both of them stopped shouting. They both ran to the dog. The man in the red hat picked it up and the woman in the blue shirt ran to get her car to take it to the vet. For a few minutes, the red and the blue didn't matter. They were just two people helping something that was hurting. That is what I am waiting for, Jesus said. I allow the shaking and the division so that people get tired of being angry. I want them to reach the point where they realize that their anger is not fixing anything. The sifting is designed to bring people to the end of themselves so they finally look up and ask for a better way. I saw a vision of the whole year 2026 like a big mountain. On the side we were on, it was very dark and stormy. There were clouds and lightning, but on the other side of the mountain, the sun was rising. It was a gold and purple sunrise that made the whole world look new. Jesus told me that the only way to get to the other side was to walk through the storm. Many will try to find a shortcut, he said. They will try to use politics or money to skip the storm. But there is no shortcut. The nation must go through the sifting to be clean. You cannot have the sunrise without the night. He then showed me a vision of the churches. I saw buildings with crosses on them. Inside, some people praying, but other people were standing on the stages, waving political signs. They were talking more about the elections and Mr. Trump than they were about him. I saw that the light inside those buildings was very dim. It looked like a candle that was about to go out because there wasn't enough oxygen. Jesus' voice sounded like a low drum when he talked about this. Even my own houses are being sifted, Noah. Many have traded the gospel of peace for the gospel of power. They think that if they win the election, they win the world. But I am not interested in who sits in the White House as much as I am interested in who lives in the hearts of my people. In 2026, I will shake the churches until only the ones built on love are left standing. The ones built on politics will crumble like sand. I saw a vision of a giant wind blowing through a church. The signs and the posters were all blown away. Some people ran out of the building, angry. But a small group of people stayed. They sat on the floor and started to sing to Jesus. They didn't have any signs or fancy lights. They just had their voices. And as they sang, the light in the building started to grow. It got so bright it started to shine out of the windows and the doors. That light, Jesus said, pointing to the small group, that is the light that will save the nation. Not a leader, not a law, but a heart that is on fire with my love. I am sifting the many to find the few who will truly follow me. We stood there for a long time, watching the light grow in different places all over the map. I saw it in tiny apartments, in big farms, and even in some of the schools. It was like a giant connect-the-dots game made of fire. I saw that the light was strongest where people were being kind to people who didn't deserve it. Do you know why that light is so bright, Noah? Jesus asked me. Because they are being good? I guessed. No, he said gently. Because they are being like me. They are choosing to love even when they are being attacked. They are choosing to forgive even when it feels unfair. In 2026, forgiveness will be the most powerful weapon in the world. The people who can forgive Mr. Trump and the people who can forgive those who hate him, those are the people who will have the power to change the future. I saw a vision of a giant clock. The hands were moving toward midnight. Each tick-tock sounded like a heart beating. Jesus said that the time for playing games is over. The sifting is a serious thing because it determines what the world will look like for a very long time. He showed me that 2026 is a hinge year. Just like a door hinges on a small piece of metal, the future of the world is hinging on what happens in the hearts of people right now. I saw a vision of Mr. Trump again. He was standing in a courtroom. There were many people pointing fingers at him. He looked frustrated and angry. But then I saw a reflection in the glass behind him. It was Jesus. Jesus was standing there with his hand on the man's chair. He wasn't there to make him win or lose. He was just there. I am the judge of all the earth, Jesus said. The courts of men are one thing, but the court of heaven is another. In 2026, people will see that I am the one who raises up leaders and I am the one who brings them down. No one can sit on a throne unless I allow it. I am allowing this man to stand in the center of the storm so that everyone has to choose who they really are. The storm is not about him. It is about you. It is about every person who watches the news and has to decide, will I love or will I hate? I looked at the courtroom, and I saw that the people who were hating him were becoming dark and twisted. But the people who were praying for him, not just for him to win, but for his soul to be saved, they were becoming bright and beautiful. It was the same for the people who hated the other side. The hate was like a poison that was turning their hearts into charcoal. Hate is a fire that burns the one who carries it, Jesus whispered. The sifting is showing people the poison in their own hands. In 2026, I am asking everyone to drop the poison and pick up the light. The vision started to fade into a soft, golden mist. I felt like I was floating in a warm bath. Everything was so quiet and peaceful. I looked at Jesus and I felt so much love that I didn't want to think about the world or the politics ever again. I just wanted to stay with my friend. But I knew there was more he wanted to show me. He had a look on his face like he was about to tell me a very important secret, something about the very end of the year and what comes after the sifting. The golden mist didn't just sit there, it started to breathe. It felt like the whole universe was taking a slow, deep breath in and out. Jesus looked at me and his smile was so big it felt like it could light up a whole galaxy. He pointed down at the ground, which was now looking like a giant map of the world, but instead of cities and roads, I saw rivers of light and patches of darkness. Noah, he said, and his voice felt like it was coming from inside my own heart. You want to be a pilot because you want to see things from above. You want to see how everything connects. I'm going to show you the final flight of 2026. Suddenly, I felt like I was sitting in the captain's seat of a giant invisible airplane. Jesus was right there next to me, like the best co-pilot ever. We were flying over the month of November. Down below, I saw the election happening. It looked like millions of people were walking into little buildings to cast their votes. But Jesus didn't show me the names on the ballots. He showed me the colors of the people's spirits as they walked in. I saw some people who were voting because they were so afraid. Their spirits like gray vines wrapped tightly around their chests. They thought that if their side didn't win, the world would fall into a hole. Then I saw other people who were voting because they were angry. Their spirits looked like jagged red glass. But then I saw a third group. These people were quiet. They weren't shouting at their neighbors. They walked into the voting booths with a soft, steady gold light around them. What is that gold light? I asked. That is the light of the trustful, Jesus said. They are the ones who know that I am the pilot of the storm. They are voting not out of fear, but out of a desire to see my kindness on the earth. In 2026, the sifting is finding the gold hearts in the middle of the gray vines and the red glass. We flew over a giant mountain made of mirrors. Standing on top of the mountain was Donald Trump. He was looking at his own reflection, but the reflection kept changing. Sometimes he saw himself as a giant king with a crown, and other times he saw himself as a tired man with a lot of weight on his shoulders. All around the mountain, millions of people were looking up at him. So I saw that the people who loved him too much were getting lost in his reflection. They were starting to look like him and talk like him, and they were forgetting to look at Jesus. Then I saw the people who hated him too much. They were also getting lost in the reflection. They were becoming just as angry and loud as the things they said they hated about him. Jesus said, "Look at the mirrors, Noah. The man is a catalyst." A catalyst is something that makes a reaction happen. Because he is there, the truth of what people actually believe is being forced out. If they find their peace in him, they will lose it. If they find their hate in him, it will consume them. The sifting is stripping away the masks. In 2026, no one will be able to hide behind a political party anymore. Their true nature will be written on their faces. Then he showed me a vision of a giant fire. It wasn't a fire that burned houses or trees. It was a golden fire that was sweeping through the streets. I saw it go through the White House, through the big banks, and through the little houses in my neighborhood. As the fire touched things, the fake things just melted away. I saw a man who was very rich and thought he was important because of his money. The golden fire touched his bank account, and the money didn't disappear, but the importance did. He suddenly felt very small and realized he was just a man. I saw a leader who told a lot of lies to get people to like him. The fire touched his mouth, and his words started to sound like empty static. "The fire is my presence," Jesus whispered. 2026 is the year of the great exposure. I am burning away the illusions that people have used as a support for their lives. People have relied on their jobs, their leaders, and their opinions as a way to feel safe. But I am taking those things away so they can find the only thing that is actually real. The sifting is mercy, even if it feels hot. I saw a vision of the hinge again. It was a giant door between 2026 and the years that come after. The door was heavy and made of solid light. On one side, people were trying to push the door open with their hands and they're shouting. They were trying to force the future to be what they wanted. But the door wouldn't move. Then I saw a group of children, kids like me, and they weren't pushing at all. They were just holding hands and singing a song about how much they loved God. As they sang, the door began to swing open all by itself. Jesus smiled so bright I had to squint my eyes. The power of the future is not in the hands of the strong, Noah. It is in the hearts of the humble. In the last months of 2026, the world will see that the loudest voices have the least power. The quietest prayers will be the ones that move the hinges of history. This is why I chose a child to see this. You don't care about the politics, you just care about the pilot. We started to descend, like an airplane coming in for a landing. I saw the waterfall again, and I saw my body on the shore. I saw the doctors working hard, and I saw my mom crying. It felt like I was looking through a very thin curtain. Jesus put his hand on my head. "Noah, the sifting is going to be hard for a lot of people. They will see the news, and they will feel like the world is falling apart. But I want you to tell them what you saw from the cockpit. Tell them that from up here, the storm has a purpose. The division is just the shaking of the wheat. Tell them that Donald Trump and the leaders of the earth are just characters in a much bigger story that I am writing." He looked me deep in the eyes, and I felt like his love was being branded onto my soul. Tell them that 2026 is the year to choose. Choose love over the need to be right. Choose peace over the need to be loud. Choose me over the noise of the world. If they do that, they will find that they are not falling through the sieve. They are the gold that remains. I felt a sudden tugging like a bungee cord pulling me back. I didn't want to leave the warmth and the music. I wanted to stay in the light where everything made sense. But I saw the love in Jesus' face, and I knew I had a job to do. I had to be the one to tell the story. I felt warmth move from my chest to my fingertips, like my soul was gently being lowered into a sleeping body. He placed his hand over my heart and said, "Remember, revelation is not for fear, but for awakening." The garden dissolved, colors folded inward. The hum turned into the faint beeping of machines. Suddenly, air rushed into my lungs. I gasped so loud that nurses screamed in surprise. My mom cried, "He's breathing," and held me as if she just found her heartbeat again. I could still feel the warmth of his touch echoing inside me. In those first moments, I couldn't speak much, but one thought repeated in my mind like a promise. Love is louder than any storm. As I looked around the hospital room, everything felt different, brighter, alive. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to carry kindness. When my mother asked what happened, I whispered, "I met him," and he said, "The world is about to wake up." She cried, but not from fear, from recognition. And deep down, I knew the real work was just beginning. When I finally opened my eyes, it felt like waking up from a 1,000-year dream. The world around me was the same, but I wasn't. I could hear the quiet behind every sound, the heartbeat beneath the noise. Mom leaned over me, tears streaking her face. "Baby, you're here," she whispered. I smiled weakly. "Mom, he talked to me." She froze. "Who?" I said it softly. "Jesus." The room went silent, except for the slow, steady beeping of the monitor. I could see confusion and awe in her eyes. "He told me things, Mom, about people, about 2026, about Trump." Her hand trembled as she brushed my hair. "What did he say?" I looked past her toward the window where the evening light turned the glass gold. "He said that year won't be an ending, it'll be a beginning. People will stop trusting noise and start listening again. He said, hearts will divide before they heal, but love will win." Mom whispered, "That sounds like hope." I nodded. He said, "Hope will look like ordinary people choosing kindness when the world tells them to choose sides." I could feel warmth still pulsing in my chest, the same warmth from his hand. "Mom," I said, "he doesn't want us to be scared of change. He wants us to be ready for light." She closed her eyes and whispered, "Then that's what we'll do." That night, even with machines still humming beside me, the room felt holy, like heaven hadn't left completely. The few days since the hospital have been different. I don't see visions anymore, but I feel them. Every sunrise reminds me of his light, and every laugh in our home sounds like music from that garden. Mom started praying out loud again, not like a ritual, like a conversation. Dad stopped rushing through days. We sit together more, talk softer, forgive quicker. It is as if our house has been rewired for peace. One evening, I told him he said something before I came back. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. Mom asked gently, "What was it?" I said, "He told me when hearts learn to listen, nations will learn to see." She wrote it on a note and taped it to the refrigerator. It's still there. The message wasn't about fame, power, or prediction. It was about remembering who we are. Jesus didn't speak of Trump as a symbol of division, but as a reflection, a reminder that humanity's test is never a person. It's always the heart. When I see news or arguments now, I don't feel fear anymore. I pray. I imagine the threads of light reconnecting across the earth, glowing brighter every time someone chooses peace. Sometimes Mom asks, "Do you still hear him?" I smile, not with my ears, but every time I choose kindness, I feel him close. This story isn't about a miracle, it's about mercy. And maybe if you're listening right now, it's a reminder that heaven is still reaching for earth through people, through love, through every small choice that brings light where there was noise. Because that's what he showed me. The world isn't ending. It's remembering.